I now hand the conference over to Mr. S.R. Dev, Managing Director of NOSL Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning and very warm welcome to everybody present on the call. Along with me, I have Mr. P. Srinivasan, our Chief Financial Officer, and SGA, our Investor Relation Advisors. I trust and pray that you and your families are safe, healthy, and secure. Hope you all have received our investor presentation by now. For those who have not, you can view them on stock exchanges and the company website. As stated in our earlier calls and communications, the performance of the current financial year got impacted due to lockdown in Q1 FY21. As the economy started to unlock gradually, we saw our performance started to improve from July 2020 onwards. Our business operations started to pick up pace, and we saw a month-on-month improvement in our production levels. It is commendable on the part of the NOSL team that during this challenging environment, we managed to achieve the highest ever sales volume in FY21, expanding the year by over 14% than when compared with degrowth parameters, which was largely prevalent for most part of H1 FY21. As already stated during the previous investor call, the tire import restrictions did help the domestic tire customers to operate at high utilization for the last 7 and 8 months of FY21. The pickup in volume is backed by uptick from tire majors in domestic as well as international markets. The demand from them has been driven by a buoyant replacement market and an improving OEM segment. Revenue have grown by over 47 crores in Q1 FY21, indicating an increase of over 17% sequentially as against the similar increase in our input costs. Going forward, we expect further price increase sequentially to get reflected in QE June 21 earnings, as we expect price increases in some of our inputs. Resultantly, on the revenue front, we could achieve a growth of 9% on a full year basis in view of the price increase put into place from January 21. This was indicated earlier to all investors during Q3 FY21 investor call. With improvement in opening of economy, we had expected to improve our volume guidance for the future. At this juncture, we are not in a position to give any growth guidance for FY22 in view of the recent surge in the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. We shall be able to give our estimates for FY22 during our next earning call, as situation due to pandemic is quite fluid. The recent expansion plans announced by some of our domestic tire customers augurs well for our business. Given that our capacities are in place, the unutilized capacities will enable the company to continue the growth trajectory going into the coming years as we work towards being valued as a reliable partner to all the major tire companies. The China Plus strategy has played a pivot role in achieving that goal. It may be recalled that we had capitalized phase 2A of rupees 140 crores last year, and as indicated during the previous earning call, we have commissioned phase 2B amounting to rupees 160 crores in Q4 FY21 after successful trial runs. Apart from the small capital work in progress of rupees 14 crores, all the pending capital WIP at the beginning of FY21 have been commissioned and capitalized in the books of accounts. Quickly on the industry scenario, the global consumption of rubber, both natural and synthetic rubber, have shown signs of upward trend. The annualized consumption for the first 6 months of calendar year 2020 showed a degrowth of approximately 15% compared to calendar year 2019, whereas the annualized consumption for calendar year 2020 degrew by 6%, indicating improved consumption during H2 of calendar year 2020. The auto numbers also echo the same trend of volume pickup, aided by increasing demand for OEMs, leading to revival in demand for tire majors in both OEMs as well as replacement market. The OEM demand is returning after muted performance in last couple of years, as well as disruptions due to COVID-related challenges in the initial part of the year. As a matter of additional information, the monthly rubber consumption has reached to early 2019 level. With NOSIL being one of the key players in non-Chinese area with presence across entire portfolio of rubber chemicals, the outlook seems to be positive. Our aim is to continue the ramping up of capacity utilization, and if these indicators are sustained, we are reasonably confident to achieve 100% utilization by September 2023. That's all from my side. Now I would like to hand over to Mr. P. Srinivasan to give you update on the financial performance.
Thank you, Mr. Dev, and good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing quite good and are safe. Let me take through the financials of the company for Q4 and annual FY21. The performance for the year of FY21 are strictly not comparable with the same period last year of FY20 in view of the Q1 FY21 performance, which was impacted due to lockdown. On the sales volume front, the volume grew by 49%, taking base of Q1 FY20, whereas as compared to H1 FY21, the growth during H2 FY21 has been 75%. On a month-to-month basis, as stated by Mr. Dev, our production has picked up and we are further ramping up under 6 strict safety and hygiene protocols. On the sales revenue parameters, the net revenue from operations for Q4 stood at 322 crores as against 275 crores from Q3 FY21, a sequential growth of 17%, highest ever quarterly revenues from the rubber chemicals business. The growth has been largely driven by better volume offtake for the reasons already stated by Mr. Dev, and also the price increases which we put into place from January 21. For FY21, revenue stood at 925 crores as against 846 crores for FY20, indicating an increase of over 9%, as was already indicated during the Q3 FY21 investor call. Coming to the value addition part, the value addition for Q4 FY21 is at 142 crores, which is at 44.2% of sales. As stated during the previous earnings calls, our absolute EBITDA has improved during Q4 FY21. As indicated earlier in our earlier interactions with the investors, we once again say that we had to incur an unprecedented high price of some of our inputs despite the building blocks not displaying such massive increases. This probably happened due to temporary shortage of supply chain. We undertook this aspect keeping in mind the long-term relationship aspect with key domestic and critical international customers. The logistics aspects too delayed some import parcels, with the result that we were forced to buy some spot buying to maintain and deliver our commitment to our customers. Operating EBITDA. On the operating EBITDA for Q4 stood at 50 crores as against 37 crores during Q3 FY21, indicating sequential growth of 37%. Conversion cost showed an improvement sequentially by 175 basis points. In other words, what was 30% in Q3 FY21, it is now 28.3%. EBITDA margin for the quarter Q4 21 stood at almost 15.95% as against 13.4% in the Q3 FY21, indicating an increase of 250 basis points. For FY21, the operating EBITDA stood at 127 crores. Going forward, with stabilization of input prices and steady improvement in capacity utilizations, as we have built capacities for the future, we are reasonably confident that our absolute EBITDA will show an increasing trend and the margin will also increase as both the parameters improve. Profit before tax. Profit before tax for Q4 FY21 stood at 43 crores as against 29 crores reported in Q3 FY21, indicating a growth of improvement of 45%. For FY21, it is at 104 crores as against 152 crores for the FY20. Just to reiterate, during FY20, we had the anti-dumping protection in the first 4 months. On the profit after tax, the profit after tax for Q4 FY21 stood at 36 crores as compared to 22 crores in Q3 FY21. For the year FY21, it stood at 86.5 crores for the year. With this, we would like to open the floor for question answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Rohit Nagraj from Sunidhi Securities. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity and congrats on delivering the very good performance on volume front as well as the realizations have been increasing. So the first question is how much market share have we gained because of our volume push, and the price increases that have been effective from Jan, have they been only predominantly to take care of increased cost, or is there an element of increasing based on the trend in terms of consumption? Thank you.
Rohit, we can say what we have data is for calendar year 2020, as the March numbers are still yet to be finalized. Calendar year 2020, we are seeing a minus 7% degrowth in rubber consumption world over, 6.5%. India, the rubber consumption degrowth was minus 5%. As against that, in performance of calendar year 20, NOSIL recorded a growth of 5%. So it's a fact that we have eaten some shares of other players. So that's point number one. What's your second question on the price increases? I think we have already indicated that the price increases were in relation to the proportionate cost increases of a particular finished product. So it's not that we kept the value addition percentage, or because when you're a high price regime, you have to ensure that the customers are not passed on additional benefit. We are not supposed to load additional price increases to the customer than what was not necessary. So we have maintained that absolute EBITDA parameters rather than percentage parameters.
Understood, sir. So the second question is, now that our capex is completely done and we'll be having free cash flow generation over the next couple of years. Now, from the capital allocation strategy, what is the management expecting from a long term? So I'm not talking about 1-2 years, but from a 3 to 5 year perspective, how are we looking at in terms of the next leg of growth? Thank you.
Mr. Ray will answer that.
Rohit, I think you have rightly pointed out that as we go along, we will have basically the profitability going up. So as far as the growth is concerned, yes, we are looking at the growth of the business, but at this point of time, I would not be able to give you how exactly we look at the growth. We first see the challenges and uncertainties which are being faced at the current level in the market due to COVID and various other parameters. And as we go along, when we make consolidated plans, we will let know to all the stakeholders.
Thank you so much, sir, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would request the participants to please limit your questions to 2 per participant. The next question is from the line of Aditya Khetan.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, congrats on a good set of numbers. So my first question is that despite some of the one-off which we have taken in last quarter, as you have told that a particular client had needed some supply due to which we had bought the raw material on spot basis, and that had impacted our margin in Q3. But sir, in this quarter also, we are looking that our gross margins have only seen a minor uptick of 71 basis points only to 44%. I would like to understand that has the benefit of operating leverage has not kicked in, and are you witnessing that to come in the subsequent quarters?
I think, gentlemen, Mr. Dev has addressed in his opening speech. We made a statement that these are disproportionate price increases in our inputs, and you cannot adopt the same percentage of value addition percentage in a high price regime. What you need to do is you need to protect your cost positions, and that's what we have done. We expect the price parameters to stabilize over a period of time, and once the raw material price stabilizes, all those value addition parameters, which earlier was the guiding factor, hopefully starts getting rectified. And let the market stabilize, I would say.
Okay, so sir, if you can give a rough idea, so how has been the benzene aniline gap for the last 3 years as compared to the accelerator or antioxidant realizations? Is there any idea which you can give?
I think these are two specific questions. Maybe my request is maybe you can address a separate query. We will address it separately.
Sure, sir. So one more question, sir. When I look at the last 3-year financial from FY 18 to 21, so that is 3 years. So consequently, we had seen a decline in gross margins. I would like to understand what is the actual reason despite the removal of anti-dumping duty. Now since we are also a cost plus model and we can actually pass on the raw material pricing effect to the end, but that doesn't seem to be going for the last 2-3 years. So what are your thoughts on this?
Gentlemen, I think the first thing is till July 19 we had the anti-dumping duty protection, which we have always said it's in the region of 45 crores per annum. So that was seeking in, so that benefit has gone out. So once the new anti-dumping duty, if at all if it gets accepted and approved, etc., then that benefits, some of those benefits can come in on the new case, which we have filed injury. Second is in a situation where the auto sector grew by more than 15% over the last 2 years, between October 18 to October 20 or September 20, and which resulted in a temporary excess supply over demand. Obviously, the competitors will try to push for their volumes and get the volume. So the price pressure was there. I think we have seen coming December 20 or January 21, those excess supply over demand has got neutralized. At this stage, what we understand, at least based on what the various data which we are seeing, we believe the price corrections are happening in relation to the cost increases, largely due to the supply-demand mismatches has been settled. So in certain products, maybe the demand is more than the supply. That's a separate issue. But what we are trying to say is those corrections have happened, and once these corrections happen, then these delta parameters, all those gets rectified over a period of time. What is more important is we have also taken a conscious call that having set up a capacity, you need to ramp up your utilization or the volume of capacity utilization, and that's our priority. So it's a mix of both. The good thing is the corrections have started happening. As we go along, these things will improve over a period of time.
Okay. Sir, one last question. Sir, so that if you look at the working capital cycle or the receivable days, so that has shot up to around 120 days in FY21, the receivable days particularly. So versus our average of 85 to 90 days. So can we expect this to normalize in the coming year?
I think, gentlemen, you have missed the point. Basically, you should relate the receivables to the quarterly sales. If you see the quarterly sales of 322 crores, against that the receivable is 308 crores, it is directly proportionate to that. And mind you, receivables includes the revenue plus GST. So if you look at 308 includes the GST component of maybe 18%. So it would be 270 crores or 275 crores. So if you look at 275 as a percentage of 322, maybe it is 80 days thereabout.
Got it. About that. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rahul Jain from Credence Wealth. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, and sir, congratulations on tough numbers and a good year in a tough times. Sir, firstly, on the high value products, as what you have been maintaining in a couple of calls and also in your presentation that you have a strong position in high value-added products. So as we speak today, if you could share some more details on the high-value products proportion in this year, which has ended, and how does it pan out in the next 2 years to come?
The specialized applications revenue parameters as a percent of total revenue continues to be hovering around 25%. Though we have plans to improve that percentage, what we can say is today, maybe after 3 months we will be in a better position to understand what the market and give guidance on that.
Mm-hmm. And sir, with regards to other expenses, I believe you have capitalized further capex in this quarter. But other expenses have gone up by almost 16-17%, whereas the volume growth has been around 3%. So is this increase related to the capitalization of the entire capacity and thereby capacity not being utilized, so some of the expenses have come in this quarter? At the same time, how do we look at the other expenses part going ahead?
I think, gentlemen, I think you missed the point one thing. In Q3, you had a stock change debit of 20 crores, whereas in Q4, the stock change is a credit of 5 crores. So when you have a stock change debit, it means the production was not adequate to meet the marketing. We have sold something out of the inventory. Whereas in Q4, when you have a 5 crore credit, the production is equal to marketing or the market demand, or production slightly ahead of demand. So therefore, the conversion cost as in Q4 sequentially compared with Q3 will be on the higher side. That's point number one. The very important point is we have seen the trend from, say, for the last 2 years or last 8 or 9 quarters. We believe the conversion cost as a percentage of revenue is coming down, what has been guided. So maybe it was at peak level of 25% in Q2 of 19-20. Now today is 28%. So we already have made an improvement of 6 to 7%. So I think on that front we are right, making a conscious effort to bring it down over a period of time, and those things will come in as we ramp up more capacity utilization.
Sure. And this is the last bit to just reconfirm of what you have mentioned in your initial remarks and also your replies to the earlier participants. We do understand the raw material prices went through the roof. There was a sharp increase both in Q3, Q4, and probably initial part of the new year. And did I understand it right? As we go ahead, if the raw material prices are becoming more stable and probably follow a decline trend, but once we have increased our price on the products and given the supply-demand situation, the raw material decline will somewhere get reflected into our better gross margins. Is that a fair assumption?
As a percentage of revenue, yeah. As a percentage of revenue, you will get if you are maintaining the delta on a lower base will look higher, and delta on a higher base will look lower. When if your absolute delta, say, for example, it is 50 on 100, it is 50%, but 50 on, say, 120, it will be 40%. So you have to understand that part. It's a relative context.
Sure. That's quite helpful. And last, just a small bit, with regards to the capacity realization in Q4, given now that we have capitalized the entire capex expansion. So what could be the average capacity realization in Q4? And that will be related to what total capacity you would consider that?
We have often announced capacity of 90,000 tons during Q4.
Sure.
Additional 20,000 got capitalized, commissioned in late last quarter of March 20 or March 21. If I look at the production parameters vis-a-vis the capacity set up at the beginning of the quarter, it is about 85%.
Okay, so you're saying 85% on 90,000, not on 110,000.
110,000 has come now. So that we are saying it will take September 23 before we touch 110,000.
Sure, that's quite helpful, sir. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nirav Jimudia from Annual Research. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So I have two questions. So one to Mr. Srinivasan and then to Mr. Deo. So, sir, when we add new customers in the export market, so how much time they normally take for taking the incremental volume? So let's say when they start with a particular volume and they want to take the higher volumes for their plants across all the geographies. So how much time they take for taking those incremental volumes across their several global plants? And once they start taking the volumes, how is the stickiness of volumes with them? So if you can help us understand.
I think this is a strategy which is a game regularly being played every quarter with every customer. But insofar as international customers are concerned, whenever you are discussing with the large tire players, you need to understand your long-term strategy and how deep you are committed to their requirements. So if you are consistent enough to supply volumes on a regular basis, I think the volumes will come in.
Okay.
Obviously, they will first try with one plan, second plan, and then they will expand it to various plans. So, based on your satisfactory performance of commitment, deliveries, etc., and also the commercial terms, obviously, the improvement in volume parameters will improve over a period of time. Typically, it is very difficult to give any specific deadlines that one customer may respond very favorably to in 1 year. Some other customer may take 2 years or 2.5 years. So, it depends on customer to customer and position product to product.
Okay. But sir, if you can give us some examples based on your past track record, I'm not talking about the future, but based on your past track record with the customers, how quickly they ramp up the volume. So let's say if they are taking X, so how quickly they go up to X plus 20% or?
I think the only, an example which we can share probably is the U.S. market becoming accessible to us post the U.S. levying sanctions on China exports.
Okay.
So maybe we started on X maybe 3 years ago. Today we are at almost 4x, 3.5 to 4x, and it is improving every year.
Okay. And sir, the second question is to Mr. Deo. So, sir, when we see our largest competitor in China, they separately mentioned the capex amount they intend to spend on treating the environment waste. So, just want to understand, when we built our capex, so what we have spent 470 crores in phase 1 and phase 2, how much is the capex built up for the environment treating, or this was not required in phase 1 and phase 2 and we have not built up in our capex numbers? So this is one. And a part question to this is, I was just reading to one of their press releases about our largest competitor. So they have mentioned that they have reduced their power consumption per ton of finished goods by roughly 4.7% on a YOY basis. So if you can explain whether we also benchmark our power cost in terms of reducing per ton consumption every year, or how do we set our benchmarks for the same? Thank you.
Okay. Your first question about benchmarking no-seal with Chinese competition.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that it's unfortunate that a Chinese company has to talk about a very specific investment on environmental issues. Okay. Because probably historically they were not paying any attention to environmental issues, and now they have to impress upon for their sustainability that we are spending money on environmental issues. In fact, if you really look at no-seal has been extremely careful in terms of handling safety and environment. So when we built our capex, in the capex, or when we built our technology, the two major things which gets addressed as a part of the capex is safety and environment. So we don't have to mention the separate numbers in terms of safety and environment. They become a part of our capex. Okay, and probably that is one of the reasons no-seal has a very good recognition, not only as a company with product, but with a company which has a very high level of sustainability, which is now being emphasized by Chinese companies, which no-seal never had to do. Okay, so I think that hopefully answers your first question. Okay. The second question, will you please just give me a hint? I will be able to answer.
Yeah, so I was just telling that so far as what they have mentioned in one of their press releases, that they have reduced their power consumption per ton of finished.
I'm coming to that. Okay, now let me tell you one thing. I think if you recollect, I think we are basically ISO 9000, 14001, 18001 responsible care certified company. Also, we have been recently certified for ISO 50001, which is basically the energy conservation. Now, one of the major aspects which are seen, particularly in 14,001 and 50,000, is a continuous improvement in terms of use of natural resources.
Okay.
Now, when you talk of use of natural resources, it obviously includes energy. So, basically, the performance at the time of certification is not seen in terms of whether you are maintaining the standards. It is always seen in terms of continuous improvement in the standards.
Okay.
And I think all our auditors are extremely happy in terms of NOCIL's performance, because in all the areas, whether it is environment, whether it is safety, whether it is energy, NOCIL has been consistently showing an improvement in the performance. Again, I think the Chinese competitor probably have to impress upon that they are improving in this area, which has been a culture of NOCIL maybe from last 15 years.
Okay. And sir,
I would like to add here, just to
Yeah.
I think in our director's report there is going to be a mention of the conservation of energy and the benefit. I
Okay.
believe we should be about 5% benefit during this year. That also is coming.
Okay. So Mr. Srinivasan, like what you earlier mentioned to the earlier participant in terms of the gross margins, like on a higher base the percentage falls and on a lower base the percentage improves. But sir, when I see your quarter-on-quarter numbers, I think we have clocked a realization of 14% and a volume growth of 3%. So let's say if the Q3 base was 100 and if we take 14% realization growth and a volume growth of 3%, actually our gross margins improves by roughly 8 to 10%. So is this a correct assumption or am I missing something in between, sir?
I don't want to get into specific numbers, yes, but if you are expressing as a percentage, I think on a per kg basis there could be some correction, because that's the reason your profit numbers are also going up if the volumes are not significantly increasing. So that's a derivation which you can, mathematical derivation which you can do in any case.
Okay.
What is more important is when we are dealing with the customer, it's more important to get the volumes, get the markets, and with the competitive price, are we able to manage our cost within that price? That's the challenge, and that's a continuous challenge for across all products, across all customers.
Okay.
So that's how this. So this is what you are seeing as an absolute number at the end of a particular reporting period, but
Okay.
on a day-to-day basis, when you are dealing with a customer, you cannot get into that specific numbers. What we look at is averaging and how do we do as a business as a whole.
Okay. So, sir, safe to assume that whether the prices moves up or the prices moves down, from the raw material point of view, our endeavor would be always to protect the per kg margin.
Yeah, that's the least we should do, if not better. Because every entrepreneur would like to record profits and generate profits. But at the end of the day, the competition, the market conditions also influences a lot. And in case it's a recessionary market, these things get come under the challenge. But in a stable market or a growing market, these things get magnified or exaggerated, or you start showing a better performance, or because of an introduction of a new product or a development of a high value products, whatever you may call it.
Okay. Thanks a lot for answering the questions in detail, and all the best to the entire NOCIL team.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saurabh from Asian Market Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, can you give the breakup of domestic and export volumes or mix in Q4 as well as for the FY21?
In volume terms, I think we should be 65-35 is what domestic and exports. For Q4, maybe it's slightly 67 and 33 probably.
Okay. And sir, any update on the anti-dumping for the one product as well as for the three products what we have filed?
The investigations are currently on, so we are yet to wait for the outcome of that. It's the investigations are on. So those queries, exchange of communications going on. So we have not heard the final decision.
So for the one product, it should come anytime, right?
Basically, it got hampered due to the second wave COVID in Delhi. So otherwise, this would have come by this time. So because of that, it has got delayed a bit.
Okay. And sir, if you can just give broad, like what percentage of the no-sales portfolio would be this sport product?
No, I think it's too premature to talk about it.
Okay.
And it's not
Okay.
well appropriate at this point of time.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhishek Datta from Prabhudas.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, congratulations on a great set of numbers, sir. So just wanted to know, now that the Chinese economy is also reviving and their exchange rate has also actually appreciated on a YOY basis, if I look at it on a one-year basis, are you getting more leg room to increase the prices for the end products?
See, Abhishek, the main point is the competitive. I think we made a statement at the beginning that the prices are basically competitive in nature. So you have to look at what the customer is getting, what is it costing to the customer on a particular product or a particular volume. And so long as it's in the competitive range, you get the business. What we have seen, I think what we are trying to communicate across the investors is that there is an unprecedented increase in the input cost, and therefore each competitor earlier were not in a position to pass on because the supply was excess of demand. But now in the last 4 months or 5 months, we are seeing supply is equal to demand, or some cases supply is shorter than the demand requirement. That has enabled the price corrections happening, and that's how we are able to pass on the cost increases. Secondly, if you see as far as no-sale is concerned, we have additional capacities in place, so that also plays well for us to offer additional volumes wherever required. I hope I'm able to answer the question.
Yeah, so Mr. Deo alluded to some price hikes which will be reflected in the month of June. So have you taken any subsequent price hikes post the January hike?
Yeah, I think we have said it. We have already, Mr. Dev announced it, no? That in April also there are some price corrections because commensurate to the cost increases.
Okay. And sir, finally, sir, I just didn't get this utilization thing correctly. Like, so you are saying that 85% of 90,000 ton is for the Q4 average.
Correct.
And when can we expect, like, what will be the peak utilization? Like 90% for the whole 110,000 is what you...
95%, I think we said September 23.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir, and all the best and many congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Niranjan S. from Equitas Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So we compare the gross margins for no-sale as well as China Sunshine for the period of this March 21 versus H1 CY20. So what we see is the numbers for no-sale have worsened drastically, and whereas for China Sunshine it has improved. To give you the numbers, no-sale numbers, it was 49% in H1 CY20, and now in this March quarter it is 44%. And for China Sunshine it has improved from 23 to 31. So wanted to understand what is the disconnect over here?
What we have data with us is that the China Sunshine gross margin is about 40% today, and we have the data from calendar year 13. It starts from 36% to 40% over a period of 7 years, whereas we are at 44 today. So I think that's just for your information. I think the second issue is that I don't know where you are getting this number of 23%, or I'm not able to understand. But what we have the data is 36% to 40% over the last 7 years. China Sunshine.
No, I saw the press release for H1 CY20.
So maybe there could be some element of expenses which is not forming part of raw material cost as far as no-sale is concerned. In case they are including as part of the gross margin calculations. We do a very simple thing. Gross margin is sales minus RM cost.
Okay, fine. We'll look into it. So do you still stick to the guidance of 50% and as you mentioned in Q3, gross margin in, say, long term or medium term?
I think we have already answered and Sudev has answered that. I think the issue what he says is today we have a situation where there's a high price regime, high cost regime. Therefore, absolute EBITDA per kg or absolute EBITDA, the margin is what we are interested in keeping it or protecting it, or delta, what we call it. So as the thing stabilizes, these parameters will improve. Yes.
Okay. So another question was, we saw the recent release of China Sunshine. So they mentioned that they're focusing on continuous production process in their upcoming capacities. So I want to understand how does NOSTIL fare in terms of how can we benchmark NOSTIL in terms of them, and how is it better or compared to them, the production process?
I think this is a very tricky question to answer in terms of benchmarking the technology. Okay. But what I can tell you is, as we have been saying, we have a research center, we develop our technologies, and our endeavor is to create technologies which are world class. I think in the previous answer, I also told you about environment. Okay. Now, we also develop our own technologies for environment. So as far as the technologies are concerned, I would still place that NOSTIL is better than China Sunshine in terms of technology. However, I think if you look at their volumes are far more higher. Okay, and that gives them an advantage.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Levin Shah from ValueQuest Investment Advisors Private Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. My first question is on this conversion margin. So we had obviously the margins have come down. I mean, conversion cost has come down from 30% to 28 odd percent. But we had previously mentioned that over the medium to long term, we are seeing that this margin should, so conversion cost should come down to 25%. So is that, does that guidance still stay? I mean, we are looking at conversion cost coming down to 25%, right?
I think we have already answered the first part. From 35% or 34.5%, we have come to 28% over a period of time. And this is not fully 100% of capacity utilization. So when you go into 100% capacity utilization, these things will automatically get stabilized. And we are reasonably confident that once we touch 100% capacity utilization, these parameters as a percentage of revenue, 25% is achievable.
Okay. Sir, my next question is on this export market. So in the past, we have spoken about being in, so supplying some quantity to some of the export customers, and post approval and all testing at their front, we would see ramp up in those accounts or clients happening. So where we are in that phase, have we started seeing incremental volumes from those customers, or it is still some time away?
We have seen improvement, and I think we have already answered to one previous question. So I think let's not. So we have already answered that question.
But sir, just a follow up. So do we see any further, are we engaging with other few clients where there is a possibility that we might see a big volume uptick in future?
Yeah, I think we are in discussion with all the customers, and wherever there is a scope for additional opportunity to do additional business, we will definitely explore and conduct the same.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishabh Sharedalal from Praveen Ratilal Share and Stock Brokers Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations. Just wanted to understand on this anti-dumping duty front. So, what is the price of the imported PX13 rubber chemical that is being imported, and what is our price, and what sort of an percentage of anti-dumping duty on it are we actually, as a consortium, we have made the representation to the DGFT. So what sort of a percentage of anti-dumping duty are we expecting on this PX13?
Gentlemen, I think as far as the anti-dumping duty determination is concerned, that should be left to the discretion of DGTR, Director General of Trade Remedies. So it is not our claim, it is their determination, and they will quantify that impact, whatever that they feel, number one. Number two, as far as our pricing is concerned, pricing is CIF landed price into India plus appropriate customs duty and exchange rate. That's our competitive pricing.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know that what sort of a difference is there between the price that is imported and our CIF price. Just wanted to understand that.
It's a CIF price equivalent, na? If CIF price is 100, and you're just putting exchange rate of 72, 100 into 72, 7,200 is a landed price plus normal duty of 8%, whatever it is.
Okay,
so I think you should understand, when a foreign competitor is offering in India CIF, say $100, the equivalent rupee parameters plus customs duty is what the domestic landed customer will buy from you. Unless you are competing at this, there is no incentive for him to come to you.
Okay, so the price that is being, the imported price and our price is roughly the same. Is that my understanding correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And just one more question on this anti-dumping duty only. So what sort of what is the legal team at NOSIL trying to gauge of the situation that is being presently there? So the period has been extended by 2 months. So what is the expectation of the legal team at NOSIL?
I think it's too premature and the matter is under investigation, and it's not appropriate to even make any assumption or comment on that. I think we leave it to the discussion. We have submitted our contentions. Now it's for the authority to conclude, and whatever we have to await their decisions.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for answering in detail, and once again, all the best to the NOSIL team.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanjaya Satpathy from Ampersand. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Congratulations once again on a good set of results. Sir, your hesitation in giving a guidance for fiscal 22, can you just explain it that how bad has been this quarter one, and if this issue of lockdown gets over, let's say in quarter one, then what will be your expectation of a full year number?
Gentlemen, the first point is, what we said is, while commenting on FY21, we said Q1 FY21 was bad, whereas Q1 FY22 as compared to Q1 FY21 is definitely better.
Yes.
And we would like to expand our capacity or pursue the growth, but once the lockdown gets opened up, or once the economy starts opening up, we will work out accordingly. But what we are seeing is the first 1.5 months or 50 days of sales, what has happened, is shown a good trend. The question is how long this lockdown will persist, we don't know. But to summarize, the Q1 FY22 volumes will be far better than Q1 FY21.
And how does it compare with quarter four?
No, that's too premature to talk about it today.
No, I mean, you already know quarter four number.
We have quarter four number, but we have this June month, which is uncertain, and which is the last few days of May uncertain. So we don't know what's going to happen. Wherever we are possible, we are able to conduct our sales, but there are challenges. So it's little premature to talk about it.
And exports is no way going to mitigate the near-term softness of domestic demand.
See, the contracts are generally entered before the commencement of the quarter. So once the export volume is fixed, you have to supply as per that. There could be some minor tolerance limit here and there that additional quantity we may explore it and supply it. but not otherwise. And logistic challenges are often there in exports. So even in March we had some delayed shipments, so which got postponed to April. So that's part of life.
And the logistics issue, which was there probably because of Suez Canal, etc., is that something which is not yet normalizing?
It's still not normalized. There are some challenges.
And sir, lastly, I just want to understand from you that when as you were kind of in the middle of you forming up your next expansion plan, will that next expansion plan be simple expansion of current product lines, or you have scope to decisively move into something which is different from your current product line, both in terms of value addition as well as different types of product, so which will kind of give you not only scale but also some kind of a diversification benefit in times like this?
Mr. Dev is going to answer this question.
See, basically, as far as the expansion plans are concerned, we continue to scrutinize various options. Okay. Now, the options could be in terms of continue to expand in rubber chemicals. The options could be to look at the other products which are value addition. Okay. And at the end of the day, we look at the feasibility and then decide where NOSIL should grow. Okay. So I think we keep both the options open, and we will look at it as we go along.
And when do you think you will be able to share your plans, sir?
I think right now, since we are in the midst of COVID and there are a lot of uncertainties in terms of everything, in terms of even the manpower availability, I think we will start looking at the real time in terms of implementation, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deekshant from DD Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Srinivasan. It's a pleasure talking to you. Firstly, thank you to our company. We have really gone through some tough times, and our company has performed really well. So congratulations on that, sir.
Thank you.
My first question is regarding the DGTR, and second about an allotment of ESOPs around 2004. So going on to the allotment first, I see that senior management has been allotted with 1,15,075 shares. So can you please enlighten us who is the senior management who has been allotted this share, and is Mr. Srinivasan a part of this?
Gentlemen, we all of us, over 20 employees, are being given ESOP grants as per the board remuneration committee, and these grants are the ESOP policy, which is generally valid for 10 years from the date of grant, and each employee is given the freedom to exercise as per his needs. So some employees have exercised as per their needs. That's an ongoing process. So there is nothing, and Mr. Dev, myself, and others are also a part of this scheme.
Understood, sir. Understood. So I see that you have a very good, a very good trajectory with the ESOPs. So that's just a point of curiosity as an investor from my end. So second question is on DGTR. I see that the team has put a lot of efforts into this, and in regards to the PX13 case that is ongoing, so the preliminary findings say that the anti-dumping duty could be of $1,200 to $1,500. Now, as a team of NOSIL is very good financially, we must have done some cost-benefit analysis here. If, and that's a big if we get this, do you think we would see any significant change in EBITDA and net margins? And if this happens, is there any particular numbers that you can give us as guidance?
Again, I think we have answered the previous question on this. And the investigations are on, so it's not appropriate to talk about what are the impact on EBITDA, because we don't know what is going to finally come in. So let's wait for the final decision from the government bodies, number one. Number two, the DGTR levies anti-dumping duty on specific exporters. So
Yes,
you
sir.
have to look at the weighted average of that and what are the customers' options to that. So it's a jigsaw puzzle by itself. So let the final decision come, then we'll take a call appropriately.
So one last question on our expansion front. So NOSIL has been really good with the expansionary front, and we have utilized the CapEx very well, and we were prepared for the auto pickup sector, which was very well timed, and kudos to the management there, sir. So going forward, I see you have said this previously that 95% of 110,000 capacity is the goal by September 23. But over the current financial year of FY 21-22, what do you think should be the company's guidance on capacity utilization? What are we hoping for?
Gentlemen, I think Mr. Dev in his opening remark made a statement that today being an uncertain area, a challenging area during this time, it is not appropriate to comment on it. During the Q1 earning calls of FY22, we will definitely give you guidance.
Thank you so much, sir. As an investor, none of the questions that have been answered were very helpful on a direct matter. I love the company. I have been an investor for a long time. My father has been an investor since the last 15 years. But I would really appreciate when times do get certain, we get better guidance. All the best to the company, sir.
This is uncertain time, so please wait for the final decision comes.
Understood, sir. Understood, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take the last question from the line of Sachin Kasera from Swan Investments. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody, and congrats for a good set of numbers. So my question was related from the long-term horizon, say from a 4 to 5 years perspective. You mentioned that by Q2 of this year, this new capacity should probably fully stabilize, and maybe another 4 to 8 quarters from there, we should be able to fully utilize it. So, and since our balance sheet is very strong even now, from a long-term perspective, is there sufficient scope for the company to further keep increasing its capacity in this area, or at some point of time we look have some adjacent categories as a company if we want to grow?
I think partly I have answered this question. First thing, if you look back the history of NOSIL, okay, I think as we started accumulating cash, we have loaded back into the business. The strategy is very clear that there has to be a continuous improvement in terms of capacities and business. So this basic strategy will continue. Now, to answer your question, whether we would grow only in rubber chemicals or whether we would look at some other avenues, I think we keep both the options open. Okay, and as we go along, and when the plans are concrete, we will definitely share it with you.
Well, I understand and appreciate that fully, sir. My question was from a little different perspective. That with these capacities, now we would be, see, compared to 7-8 years back, we have grown much faster than the market, right, on a CAGR basis, right? So our market share as in the global and in India has gone up in the last 7-8 years.
Yes.
And will further go up in the next 6 to 8 quarters once we fully utilize this capacity, right? So is there enough scope for the company that, we can keep growing faster than the market next 5 years and that our market share can keep going up? Because there's one limit to the market share global that we can achieve, right? That was my perspective. And if we see that, there could be certain limitations to beyond which we cannot grow our market share in rubber chemicals, then we may have to look at adjacency because the company is actually looking at growth options.
If we really look at it, I think one of the major changes which has happened in the world market is a China plus strategy. Okay. Now, how this China plus strategy is being implemented by all the people, okay, that will create avenues for NOSIL to grow. And since NOSIL is one of the largest rubber chemical manufacturers out of China, NOSIL has a great advantage to be in this business and continue to expand in case the China plus strategy is being implemented by all the customers to certain extent. So we also see that NOSIL also could grow in rubber chemical business.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. That's the last question. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Dev for closing comments.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So, gentlemen, these are challenging times which does bring some element of uncertainty. We are hopeful that India will bounce back and all stakeholders will take India forward, and we are hopeful with the capacities already in place, we shall see further movement and growth in volume as well as revenues in FY22. I take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining the call. I hope we have been able to address all your queries. For any further information, kindly get in touch with us or Strategic Growth Advisor, our Investor Relation Advisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of Nortel Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines. 275.